everybody. Gosh, I hope you're all here to prepare and you're not already burnt out. I hope not. But yeah, today we're going to talk about coping with caregiver stress and burnout. And like Jerry said, it's great to be able to prepare. And if you're not already in the midst of caregiving, hopefully, probably when it happens to you, not if, you'll remember some of these things. And oh yeah, that council on aging. Oh yeah, that answers guide and this and that. And you'll know where to go to find some answers and some assistance. So I know some of you were here last week, so I won't belabor this, but the Council on Aging is a local nonprofit, been in Santa Ana for over 40 years, and we are the trusted, unbiased source for information. So in regard to our HICAP program, and just tiny correction, Jerry, I don't work with the HICAP program directly. I'm with the FAST program, though, Financial Abuse Specialist Team. But we do work, we all work very closely together. There's many different programs at the Council on Aging. So we do publish the answers guide that's over there on the table. You might want to pick that up and you can learn about all our programs. But basically the council's in place to help people navigate the aging experience. You don't know what you don't know until somebody starts declining or somebody's a victim of maybe Medicare fraud or financial abuse, or is just on Medicare and doesn't really understand it or know what plan to choose. So 84% of every dollar goes directly back into our programs to support them. So we're supported by individuals, corporations, and then we do have grants. We write for grants, and then there are some government contracts, like our Ombudsman program, as well as our HICAP program. It's government mandated. So we break our areas of impact into 3 areas: advocacy and protection, which is HICAP, that's Medicare counseling. It's free to the consumer. Ombudsman program, for those of you that might not know what that is, every facility, skilled nursing facility, assisted living facility, residential care facilities for the elderly have what's called an ombudsman in place. We do run that program, and that's really the resident advocate. So the ombudsman deals with any kind of complaint you can think of. I don't like the food that's being served here, to really serious allegations of abuse, and then everything in between. And so they really take reports very seriously, and sometimes it's a misunderstanding, but it's a wonderful program. And then our financial abuse specialist team, like I said, I work with that team. We work very closely with local law enforcement as well as with Adult Protective Services. So that's also a fabulous program. Obviously, we do a lot of education and outreach, and like I said, publish that guide. Smile Makers, we wrap thousands of gifts every year for people who are alone and isolated in nursing homes, don't have family. They fill out a little angel tree, you know, I'd love a robe, and we fulfill that wish and wrap these gifts, and oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. We rent like extra space to do it every year. And then a socialization program, Reconnect, friendly visitor program, and care management for adults that are at risk for mental illness because they are isolated. So I don't want to take away from the main presentation to go into too much depth about all these programs, but you can go on our website, or like I said, pick up that guide. If you are looking to volunteer somewhere, we have wonderful volunteer opportunities. So good training for volunteers. So today, caregiver stress and burnout, and often what that's about when we start caring for a loved one. And I say loved one, and I do want to acknowledge that it isn't always a loved one. Sometimes people don't like their parents very much, you know, and they have a contentious relationships, giggles, you know, and it can be, that even makes it tougher. So anyway, but adjusting to that new normal, the reality of the situation, how could this be happening? So we'll talk about what are the symptoms of burnout, you know, those real red flags of trouble that should really be taken seriously. And then what can you do? It's like we talk about this, it's like, yeah, but what am I supposed to do? So we'll talk about some things that you can do, some stress reducing tools, and how to really try to implement lasting change, and then some resources. Okay, so that's what we'll talk about today. I know I brought this up last week and I showed you a picture of me with my mom and my dad, but life can change rather quickly or very gradually. It's different for all of us. For me, it was very quick. As I mentioned last week, my dad was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, not treatable, inoperable. My mom, they both have very serious emphysema, so they were functioning pretty well, and then with that news, it sort of destabilized the whole situation, and that was my situation. But for other people, like I said, it can be very gradual, like dementia. You know, I don't think Dad's remembering things the way he used to. Mom doesn't seem the same, you know, those types of things, and many other chronic illnesses. Sometimes it's comorbidity, right? Many illnesses that happen. So, but you know, it's characterized by loss of function, very chronic illness, like I just said, that it might be multiple illnesses, or a serious diagnosis, like in my case. So, it's not for the faint of heart, is it, for those of you that are dealing with that? So how do we adjust to the new normal? Well, we have to really assess the reality of the situation, what's really happening here. I also mentioned last week that, you know, my family's kind of gone, since my parents passed away. My dad passed away in 2001 and my mom in 2003. And I went back and got my master's in gerontology and started speaking about this topic shortly thereafter. You know, you want to help people, you know, navigate the terrain that you've already navigated. And that's been my intention. And in my family, it's been new babies and lots of good health and happiness since my parents passed. And as I mentioned last week, but for those of you that weren't here, in October, my 55-year-old, very active brother was body surfing and landed on his head and broke his neck and suffered a spinal cord injury. So we're fortunately, his spinal cord was not severed. It's incomplete. He can move his legs. He's standing. He walked full weight bearing yesterday with assistance. So he's coming along. But he and his wife live with me right now because they live in the mountains and have lots of stairs. And so I'm dealing with this. I'm not burnt out. I'm not the primary caregiver. His wife is. I wish she were here today because she needs to be. But I really speak to you with great empathy if you're going through this. And back to assessing the reality of the situation, that's what kind of happens. It's like, wait a minute, how could this happen? You know, how can this all change so suddenly? Or if it has been gradual, you're kind of trying to get your mind around what's going on, or maybe you've been in denial, or hoping mom or dad or your spouse would get better, and you realizing, you know what, this isn't getting better. There's something here I need to deal with. So being truthful and really assessing what's going on here. And then understanding the diagnosis and the prognosis. Doing research, sitting down with doctors. You know, we always hear knowledge is power, right? I know when this first happened to my brother, I wasn't so much this way with my dad, but at first I was really reluctant to do a bunch of research about his type of spinal cord injury because I didn't want to know. It's like, I only want the good news, right? It can be really scary and sad. So, but really understanding what you're dealing with is very empowering and can help point you in the right direction. So it's important. Find out what you're really dealing with. And then looking at home safety. Well, what can we improve if it's in your home or your parents' home and they're not living with you? Really looking at those issues of home safety, not only for that person, but it can ease the burden for you as well. So maybe that is a ramp put in, for example, or universal design. You know, you don't have to do a major remodel to make some home modifications, but lighting, let's say. You know, most people fall. You probably know this. When do you think most people fall in their home? at night when they're, going to the bathroom. I mean, just think of yourself. If you're perfectly healthy, you're stiff, you're groggy, and you kind of, when you first get up, so imagine if you had some type of physical or cognitive impairment. It happens a lot. So lighting can be really helpful. Removing clutter can be really helpful. Obviously, or not so obviously, the grab bars. But if you're preventing the one you're caring for from falling, that's also helping you as well, and easing your life as well. So anyway, just thinking about those things. You can have somebody come out and do a home assessment. There are people that specialize in doing home modifications, and there's some people that have advertised in that guide. I'm not saying we endorse them, but they have gone through special training. You don't want your son-in-law coming over and putting grab bars in that are going to come out of the shower the first time somebody, hangs on to it. It does happen. So getting organized so that you feel like you have some control over the situation. So if you were here last week, we talked, and if you weren't here last week and want a copy of the PowerPoint, I'm sure Jerry would be happy to give that to you. But getting that paperwork together, advanced healthcare directives, power of attorney for finances, finding out what your loved one wants, but just knowing what you're dealing with the insurance. For when this happened with my brother, I was already familiar with all this. His wife, who's really smart and savvy and great at getting online and doing research, but she was just overwhelmed. She was just like, oh my God, if I didn't have you, Karen, I don't know what I would do. Because I was able to get on the phone and find out this and find out that. And, it can really be a nightmare. So really knowing mapping it out, what am I dealing with here, is so helpful. And it's a great way to discharge some of your energy too. Some of that, rather than just sitting and staring and being depressed about I don't know what to do, can really help you too. And by the way, feel free to interrupt me to ask questions or comment or to expand on an idea or get clarity. This is so easy to say, and if any of you are in the midst of this right now, you're probably cursing at me silently. Accept what's happening. Yeah, easy to say, and it is so easy to say. But so often, this is where our pain is. I've done this talk to audiences, and it breaks my heart because I see people crying in the audience. It can just be so horrific. But sometimes so much of our pain is just being, I don't want this to be happening. And there's a saying, what we resist persists. And so that feeling of dread, that feeling of gloom will persist. And sometimes when we can accept what's happening and then become proactive in it and reach out to resources and try to do something different, it helps us feel better and helps us come to a place of, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And most things, if you live through it, it's temporary, right? If you live through it. That's why you want to be careful of caregiver stress and burnout, though. The percentage of caregivers, this is usually older spouses, that pass on before the one they're caring for is extremely high. I've read different numbers, but it's usually around 40%. So it's really, and that's from not going to the doctor. Oh, I'll get that lump check later, or whatever. Jerry, did you want to? Do you have a different percentage?
No, I was going to say that's very accurate, and it's accurate with people who are caring for disabled children.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
So it's very important that, so often they think, oh, these resources are only available to when you have an elderly person through Medicare. No, there are resources if you have disabled children as well, and so many of them end up ill, and then they're also stressed because now I'm ill, who's going to take care of my child?
Exactly.
So very important to look for resources. Take that moment to take a vacation day or a sick day and look for resources, even if it's not for elderly, even if it's for children.
Right, and if you do it as you go along, and we'll talk more about this as we get deeper into the presentation, it's easier to bounce back, like you're saying, take a day. If you are really burnt and your cortisol levels, I teach stress management, we talk so much about being stuck in fight or flight, like you're running from a prehistoric tiger, right? We get stuck in that. And when you are really stuck in that, one day off is not enough. It's not enough. You'll just come back more resentful because you want more days. So keeping that consistency so that you don't get into that huge, oh boy, I'm really stuck in fight or flight because this is, you just like trying to keep all the balls in the air, and that resentment, it's just really, really not a good situation. And then being aware of family dynamics. This too can put a huge drain on people, especially if there is resentment and people who don't get along and siblings who are fighting and all those situations. A very dear friend of mine, her mom was just, very abusive growing up without getting into the whole story. And they live right around the corner from each other. I owned an in-home care and assistance agency for a few years, and she became one of our clients. And my caregivers all the time were saying, oh, so-and-so, Susie we'll call her, never goes over to visit her mom, and she's so mean, and she doesn't love her mom. It's like, don't judge, you don't know the situation, and so on and so forth. But she had to really come to terms with, my mom and I are never going to be friends. We're never going to be close. I mean, my friend is in her 60s. She's tried. She's been to therapy and, all the things. But her solution was really accepting that. And then, fortunately, her mom has enough money to pay for 24-hour care. And they've got great care in place. And she does visit once in a while. So that's what she had to do to deal with the situation. And then being open to change. Being open to doing something different. So often, and as I watch, for example, my sister-in-law, nope, this is my job, he's my husband, I love him, and it's like, but you can't do this forever. So being open to some new ideas can be really helpful. So what are some warning signs of some destructive caregiver stress and burnout? So we've already talked about this, and caring for a loved one can be extremely rewarding. I always say, when I cared for my parents, it was the most rewarding time in my life. Also the most challenging, the most exhausting. I literally fell asleep on my feet talking to a nurse in the hospital one. I thought that was just a saying. I didn't know, oh, he fell asleep on his feet. And I was talking to somebody at, my mom's bed, and I literally went, as I was talking. And it was like, wow. And I definitely fell into this, I'm going to do it all. I know the meds. I know what to do. Nobody else knows. And you can become a martyr. You really can. And so you have to be really honest with yourself. And remember, too, that you might be robbing other people who love that person of having those same rewarding moments. I know I was able to realize that, and I'm so glad I did with my brother and my dad. It was like, Karen, wow, this is his dad, too. Let him have some time with him. He's smart enough to read a list of how to do the meds, and he can call you if there's a question. And I'm so grateful to this day that I realized that. So anyway, we've kind of already said this, but the time and energy it takes often takes a huge physical and emotional toll on people. And it can manifest, if left unchecked, into different physical, psychological, and emotional symptoms. So I showed this last time, but anyone here in the sandwich generation? Yeah, I remember you guys, you're raising your hand. Yeah, so this can even exacerbate a situation. So those of you that raise your hand, you just kind of shake your head. You're caring for parents and children, both? Yeah. So very tough. And then your children are seeing you. This is why This is why I insert this slide here too. It's so important to really take care of yourself. Because even though your children might not, depending on their ages, say to you, gosh, Mom, you know, I miss you. That's one thing that can happen. We get so tied up in caring for parents that we can kind of forget, well, my daughter hasn't complained or hasn't said anything, but they feel it, and they're often grieving the decline of their grandparent. So age appropriate, involve them. You know, whatever is age appropriate. Invite your son or daughter or however many children you have to take grandma to lunch or grandpa to lunch or whatever it looks like in your family. Might not be possible, I know. Have them come for a visit. Did you raise your hand?
I was going to say that also people who are caring for disabled children and you have other children.
Yes.
And that's also a...
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing, yes.
Those kids may feel left out or...
And become very resentful. If you didn't hear what she was saying so important if you have disabled children as well, to involve the other children. Because yes, and then they often become resentful of the disabled child. I knew a lady like that. I worked with a lady like that who said, if my parent, they don't have a will or anything in place. She has a disabled brother who probably kind of iffy if he really should have been in the home. He's a little dangerous. And she resents him because her whole childhood revolved around this disabled brother. And she says, if something happens to when my parents go on, he's not living with me. There's no way. He already ruined half of my life. I'm not taking him. So it's sad that, you know, the anger and resentment that can build. But anyway, yeah, so important. Bring them to the soccer game if you can. Even if you have to wheel them there, you know, the football game, whatever it is. So what are some physical warning signs? And this is for any burnout, not just caregiver burnout. Okay, so disturbance of sleep, muscle tension and migraine headaches especially. I mean, some people kind of have had that all their life, but if you've had 2 migraines a year and now you're having 1 every week, you know, probably a red flag. You know, you're wearing your shoulders like earrings and, you know, just that's a red flag. Stomach problems. You know, I know we have a lot of commercials for Tums and Pepcid, and you know, that's not normal.
I so have to say that is so true. I really thought that I, you know, had this stomach condition and they wanted to give me omeprazole, whatever the heck that is, the acid reflux, and it was all a part of, you know, stress. It really was, and as soon as I took care of that, that went away.
Right. Yes.
I just want to add, it doesn't always happen immediately. It can happen later. My father passed away in January, and in November I was in the hospital. I couldn't keep anything down. It was the same drug.
Yeah, my background's in holistic health and in holistic life coaching, and so had you been my client, I would have said to you, you're having a difficult time digesting what's happening in your life. If you look at your bodily symptoms, you know, headache, I cannot get my mind around what's going on. I can't figure it out. I can't, no matter how hard I try, I can't figure it out. You know, if you think about it, it'll make sense to you. And then acid in your stomach, I mean, you know, literally eating at you. Life is the situation is eating at me. And yeah, if you just go to, I mean, I believe in complementary and Westlake. I believe in marrying the two, working together. So nothing against, sometimes people need medicine, but so often we're just given medicine that covers symptoms. And then the medicine, you know, I love those commercials, may cause death in certain individuals. You're like listening, oh, this might help so-and-so. Oh, this sounds good. May cause. So anyway, weight changes and eating disorders, you know, this can work both ways. Sometimes people just can't eat. I can't take in one more thing. I know I can't digest it. Or people obviously use food to medicate, like, you know, like we do alcohol or drugs. Comfort. Hair loss, you know, it can be because of stress. Obviously fatigue, but that really deep fatigue, where even if you sleep like a rock and you still feel like you've been hit by a truck in the morning, you know, serious fatigue. High blood pressure, okay, chest pain. I mean, we can have chest pain, heart pain, kind of angina pain, and not have a heart condition. It could be because your heart is breaking. So what do you, well, so what do I do, you know? Well, one thing is acknowledging and allowing yourself to feel what you're really feeling. Acknowledge what you're really feeling, seeking support. I'll be reiterating that, but seeking support. There's a saying too, if you can feel it, you can heal it. And the most torturous thing we do to ourselves is allow our minds that chatter, you know, and it's a perpetual circle. You'll never figure it out. So write it down, journal, reach out, and just acknowledge what you're feeling. You know, so often we're trying to keep all the wheels on the cart. You know, gotta go here, gotta go there, and it can be harder. That's why we collapse and cry and get sick when the crisis is over, when the emergency is over, because we're so often handling the emergencies. Cry, I don't have time to cry, right? So, I don't have time to call a friend. We really have to find the time. So emotional warning signs. Nervousness and anxiety, okay, it might be manifesting in other areas of your life, not just about that situation. All of a sudden you know, develop a lot of anxiety. Moodiness, short temper, you know, if you find yourself having a lot of road rage, you know, and you're not PMS. That's how I always used to know I was PMS. I'd be like, get out of my way. And when I wasn't, I'd be like, oh, sure, go on. Irritability, you know, a lot of these are symptoms of depression. Memory and concentration problems, okay, relationship issues. This can translate into many areas of your life. Substance abuse, problems at work, and so often that's related to being irritable, to being moody. You know, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate, you can't even get your work done, your phone's ringing, you've got to go handle this now and that now. It can be absolutely crazy. So, I tell a story of substance abuse. With both my parents were recovered alcoholics. They've been sober for 25 years, a long time. But they were fine about us having a glass of wine at dinner or whatever, but I was always a little self-conscious, like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm going to be like they were, you know. So my mom came to live with me the last 5 months of her life, and I was stressed. But I wasn't drunk or anything. I took a bottle of beer upstairs. I think I was doing chores. This was in the evening before. This is what it was. So I had a beer, and then in the morning, I could hear her down there with her walker, you know, click, click. So I knew she was up, and I had this beer bottle still upstairs. I never took it down. I'm like, oh, I don't want her to see that she's going to think she's driving me to drink if she sees this bottle. So I put it in my laundry. I had dirty laundry to carry down, and I'm coming down the stairs. I have a big tile floor, and right as I get to the stairs, she's like, hi, good morning. The bottle drops out, smash, and you know, shatters everywhere. I just told her the truth. Oh, Mom, I had a beer last night. I didn't want you to think you were driving me to drink, so I was hiding it in the laundry. Kind of funny. So anyway, here's some reasons to really take these warning signs serious. And yes, by the way, don't lose your sense of humor. You know, even my brother, I'll say, I'll be right back, Rob, and he'll go, I'll wait here. You know? So, you know, even in the most tragic situations, you can try to find some humor, even if it's twisted. So, but you want to emerge from this experience with your life intact. And so often, I mean, you can pick up any caregiving book, and it will talk about marriages that don't survive, you know, sibling relationships that are damaged, relationships that are, you know, just damaged relationships, jobs, you know, people end up, I can't handle it, have to leave their jobs. So think about, you know, you're most likely, hopefully, going to outlive this person, whoever it is, no matter how much you love them, probably going to outlive them, and you've got a future that you need to take care of now. Otherwise, I mean, of course, there's going to be grief and healing and time to pull your life back together after the person passes away. But the less mess to have to clean up, the better. Then you can really just focus on grief and healing, and hopefully you've got a lot of good supportive relationships that are still intact, and you really get a lot of love and support from them. So, but stressed out caregivers also are more likely to abuse, whether that's verbal or physical, or neglect the care recipient in various ways. And sometimes that it's subtle. Sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it. It can just be grabbing somebody's arm and saying, hurry up, or just, you guys are intelligent people, you can figure that out, but it really does put the care recipient at risk. And not only for neglect or abuse, I mean, working at the council, I could be here all day telling you stories of the son that left a box of cereal and went to Las Vegas for 5 days while his mom, sat at home without any care. I mean, there's many, many, many stories like that, as well as professional caregivers that do abuse. When I was a young massage therapist, first getting into holistic health, I had a mother and a daughter as clients. Mom was mid-80s, daughter late 50s, I think. And the daughter, and mom had dementia, daughter was in denial. She bought her mother school books to, fix her, teach her to read again and all this. And I was 29 or something, and I'm not in this field, this was like how I got into this field. And she would tell me, mother's getting better, and I mean, it was insane. Anyway, here's my point. She shared with me one morning, she was very burnt out doing this all on her own, that her mom couldn't remember something, and I don't remember what the something was, so she poured water, not hot water, but water nonetheless, water on her mom, cold water, over her mom. Now did it harm her? But no, it humiliated her, it harmed her emotionally, and now had that been today, would have, we would have had another conversation. So, but anyways, but not just neglect or abuse, but just you're not able to give good care if you're not taking care of yourself. It's like we get on the airplane and they say, the oxygen mask will drop, and always put your mask on first before you assist others. Just apply that to life. Apply that to life. So you can't, if we pulled into a gas station to get gas and there was no gas in the main tank underground, there'd be no gas to get to drive your car, right? And our physical, emotional bodies, beings, it's the same. If we don't fill ourselves up, we don't have anything to give. You're giving from a bankrupted place. So really important. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the person you're taking care of. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, my brother-in-law's father had a stroke, and his parents ended up, his father was put in home, but his mother ended up living with him, and she never took care of any kind of finances because the father did all that.
Right.
And I think it's important to recognize not to add more stress on the person, because they got her a credit card, an ATM card, they got her a checking account, and it was like, here, take care of it.
Yes.
And it added so much stress on her, but also on them, because she wasn't able to do that, because she never had to do that in her life.
And so then they were cleaning up things that had gone wrong with her trying to take care of all that. Yeah, good point. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Good point. So what can you do? One thing I like to suggest is that you think of it as a care partnership rather than I'm a caregiver, right? And this person is taking care from me. So yes, sometimes it doesn't feel like a partnership, especially if the person has really declined or they don't have a lot of cognitive ability, but to whatever extent the person can be your partner. I mean, you are in this together. right? So if you can think of it as a care partnership, even that can help change the energy of how it feels. Remember, just your perception of what's going on, trying to change your perception. So trying to remember, we're in this together. Use empathy to gain compassion and understanding. So often, so often we can't solve somebody's problem, or you obviously can't fix somebody's Alzheimer's or fix their cancer, but just letting them know that you understand is helpful. It diffuses tension and anxiety and fear and all those things. Same thing for you, say, oh, why should I go to lunch and talk about this with a friend? They can't fix my situation, but if they can just listen to you and understand what you're saying and be empathetic, that can help us feel better. So trying to remember, asking questions like we talked about last week and listening for answers, but saying, I know this must be so difficult for you. This is difficult for me too. We're very often afraid to express how we are really feeling. I don't have many, thank goodness, and I resolved it, but one regret I had with my dad, I was so close to my dad. He was just like, my dad was like Gandhi. He was such a gentle man and so funny. And I was trying so hard to be brave for him that I missed my opportunity to really tell him how much I was going to miss him, and how, if he could have seen me when I was alone, sobbing and so mad that I was losing my dad, it was just devastating to me. But I wish I would have let him know that in an appropriate way. Like I said, I was so busy, like, Dad, it's gonna be okay, and we talked a lot about spiritual things and all that. And yes, of course it's okay. And I know he hears me now, but I just wish I would have said it while he was in the flesh. That would have been great. So anyway, not being afraid to share your grief or your sadness. You don't have to make it all about you, and again, there's so many different situations. You kind of have to pick and choose what I'm saying, what fits to your particular situation. But communication skills are so important. Like I said, make sure you listen. Your limitations and your needs. It's okay to have a little bit of energy left at the end of the day. So often caregivers fall into that category of codependent, okay? A lot of caregivers have a history of being codependent, and so of course they're the ones, and I'm a recovering codependent, I admit it. I was the one when my parents were drinking when we were growing up that tried to fix and tried to get my parents help, and my brother was the one that got on his bike and left. And so that can often translate later. I have to fix this. I am the one that's going to be there. I'm the one that, has to give. But it's okay to express. It doesn't mean you're not a good person, to express your needs and your limitations. You know what? Like, I know with my mom, it became so much a part of chores, my visits with her. Doing her laundry, doing her grocery shopping, finances, cleaning up after my dad, had died. And fortunately, I was able to express to her, gosh, Mom, it just seems like, because we used to go to lunch and go shopping and all that, she was still capable at that time of doing those things. Can we get some help, because I'm so tired, I know I'm irritable, acknowledge it. I know I'm cranky, I know I'm irritable, I miss going to lunch with you and going shopping with you. So maybe we could get somebody else to do the laundry and go to the store. I'm not saying every time, I'm not going to spend all your money on a caregiver, but just sometimes, so that you and I can have fun, because all the extra time is being eaten up by chores and tasks. So anyway. And then, like I said earlier, getting in touch with what you're truly feeling. You don't have to share this with the care recipient, or depending on your relationship, maybe you do. I mean, my brother's wife does share her feelings very honestly with him. They have that kind of relationship, but that's a spouse. relationship. Sometimes it's different. It depends on your history. But at least sharing what you're feeling, telling yourself the truth, journaling, telling a friend, telling if you're married or have a partner, being able to talk and really acknowledge it and not feel guilty for being angry, you know, or trying not to be afraid of admitting that you're fearful your loved one's going to die from whatever is going on, whatever it might be. It can be so hard, but to just push through the feelings, you really will feel better. You really will feel better. So reaching out, again, you have to look at your own situation, either now or in the future, and decide if this applies to you or is appropriate. But consider respite care, so hiring a formal caregiver. I do recommend hiring an agency that's licensed, bonded, insured, and all of that. It's just safer to go that way. Feel free to email me. I left my cards up there if you need some more information on these things. I won't take the time now to go through that. Ask for and accept help from family members, friends, neighbors, whoever is willing to help. You know when people say to you, let me know if there's anything I can do, and then what do we usually say? Oh, okay, I will. Say, okay, how about tomorrow? I mean, that might not be realistic, but well, when are you available to help? I would love to accept your help. And you know what? My mom would love to see you. I had a friend that offered to come sit with my mom so I could have some free time. This was later when she did get quite sick. And it was a great gift to my mom. This was a childhood friend. They got to visit, and it was great for me to have that time to myself. But yeah, last week we talked about, you know, forming your team. Find out who realistically can be there for you. Who's going to be there in your family or friends, whoever's around you. But then creating a calendar can be very helpful. Maybe some people are only available once a month or even every other month. Some's better than none. And then in your family, well, okay, so what are you willing to do? What are you able to do? And when? When can you do it? And then hold them to that. Hold them to that. It may be, and this was the case with my brother, with my parents, and many families that I've worked with through the years, it might just be that the reality hasn't set in for them yet, that, oh, I gotta step up here and help my sister or my brother. They need help, okay? Yeah, I can commit to this. And then they need to go through their process of accepting. All right, well, I used to go to the gym on Tuesday nights, but I guess I'm helping mom and dad now for this time. So really, really, I cannot stress that enough. Utilizing technology. So if your loved one's living alone, or you're not loved one, okay? Utilizing technology. The life alert, you know, I've fallen and I can't get up. And people used to say, oh, that won't work. My mom won't even know to push the button. Well, now they have the special sensors in there that sense movement and sense that the person's prone, and they'll contact the person. I mean, it's come a long, long way. We could have a whole presentation here on Gerontology, as it's called. But consider that, and don't assume, oh, we can't afford that because, or my mom can't afford it. Again, depending on situation, because it's gotten really affordable, really affordable. Getting organized, like we talked about, paperwork, you know, wills and trusts, that can help you to feel empowered and like, okay, I know what I need to do, and at least everything is in order. Find out what is important to your care partner. So if you were here last week, we talked about desires and wishes and really asking those important questions and then listening to the answers. And remember to keep the focus about, you know, you're trying to enhance their experience and their quality of life. And keeping your own life intact and yourself healthy in mind and body and spirit. Educate yourself about senior living options. Get a cup of tea or coffee or a glass of wine and read that answers guide, and you'll be amazed. You'll go through that going, oh wow, I didn't know Orange County had, oh my gosh, I had no idea. You'll do that. and then, you know, call us if you need to, but you will be amazed. But anyway, there's so many different senior living options now. It's really gotten a lot better. But if it's looking like your situation might go in that direction where, gosh, I don't know if mom or dad can continue to live in their own home, and what are we going to do? Or if it is a spouse, he or she may not be, I'll say he because, well, I shouldn't assume, might not be able to keep living at home. Knowing what some options are can, again, be really empowering. But you know what, it's like feeling like you're in a closed room, right? Or like at the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, and there's no doors and windows in the room. You can feel that way emotionally. And so being organized and planning and knowing what your options are, it's like opening the doors and the windows and getting some fresh air. Like, yeah, this might get really bad, but the door's open and I can bolt, or the window's open, I can get air, I'm not suffocating. So knowing what your options and your resources are can be like just opening the windows and doors. Even if you're not anywhere near taking action at the currently. So calling a placement specialist might be that saves lots of time. So a placement specialist, a family doesn't pay for a placement specialist. The facility, if the person ends up living there, pays them a referral fee. It's like a professional referral fee. But placement specialists, I've never met one that isn't integritous. I'm not saying they're not out there, but they'll sit down with you, talk about what your family can afford, what the needs are, and then what the options are. And they'll even just talk to you. Now, depending where you are in your process, if you want to go around and look at some, they'll drive you around like a realtor does, very much the same way. And I have a friend that's a placement specialist, and she said to me, I'll say, did so-and-so ever call you? Oh, no, but you know, Karen, very often people end up moving in somewhere a year later, and they don't need to call me again. And I said, but then that means you don't get paid. She goes, I don't care, at least I helped. I mean, she's not in it to make a bunch of money. Most of them aren't. And anyway, that can be a really quick way to learn about senior living options. And affordable. So reaching out, find out what's available in your community. So if you have a parent that's living out of state, you might want to get online and start doing research about what's available in their particular area. Consider counseling through the rough patches, especially if you've had a difficult relationship with your parent and now you're having to care for them. Like I mentioned earlier, going to have some psychotherapy can be really helpful, especially if you're going to all of a sudden, we could think of a million different scenarios here, what happens in families, but let's say you've been a little bit estranged. Not that you didn't love your family, care about your family, and you're willing to be there, but you see them at the holidays, and then you go your separate ways, right? And it's a truce, and everything's fine. And then mom and dad get sick, and all these issues, that you haven't even thought about in years, you thought they were resolved, just come rising to the surface. And you're having to see your family all the time and deal with your family all the time. It can be tough. So counseling can be really helpful for that. And if your family is really warring over money, there are mediators, family mediators that will sit down with families. If you do go to counseling, make sure you interview that person. No one's a specialist in everything, right? So make sure they're really familiar with elder issues and those types of things. And then geriatric care managers will also do some family mediation. So support groups, there are lots of support groups, yeah.
Where do you find a geriatric care manager?
You can go online, and I recommend that you might want to write this down. You want a certified geriatric care manager. There's lots of people out there that take online courses and call themselves care managers and senior service advisors and things like that. A true certified geriatric care, and so it's association for certified geriatric care managers. You can just start to Google it and you'll see it pop up. And they'll direct you to a list in your area. And they have to have a lot of it. You have to have your master's degree, you have to have had supervised case management experience, I think 2 or 3 years. I think it's 2 years. So they really check them out. It's hard to become a geriatric care manager. They're the real deal. So anyway, go on that website. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the website again?
It's it's Association for Certified Geriatric Care Managers.
And what do they do? What they do?
So they will just think like they manage the care. So it again depends on the situation, but they will and this is
Can they guide you too?
They'll guide you, yeah. They will guide you. They will do family mediation, but they'll manage the person's care. A lot of people use geriatric care managers. You do have to pay for it. This isn't something Medicare pays for, or insurance or anything like that. A lot of people will use them like if both spouses are very busy working or live out of state, live out of the area, and they want somebody overseeing their parents' care, okay, or whoever, their family members' care, loved ones' care. And so they'll go to doctor's appointments, they'll hire caregivers, they'll, oversee the care of the person, it's really medical care, physical care. If there's financial issues involved and somebody lives far away for whatever reason, family is not able, there's also professional fiduciaries, kind of a whole nother, you might want to have a fiduciary come and talk to your folks, but anyway, a fiduciary will oversee all of the care, but that's usually when there's cognitive problems, person can't manage their money, that type of thing. And family, for whatever reason, I can't deal with this. I'm not available to deal with this. Maybe the person has a disabled child and they have to be there for that child that needs them. So there are resources. Support groups, if appropriate for you. Not everyone clicks with support groups, but I wanted to go back to that. So implementing lasting change, I know we've got to be coming up on the time here. We okay, about 5 more minutes, okay, for people? I will not be offended if you have to get up and leave. It's really okay. But trying not to isolate yourself, okay? Call your friends, email your friends before, you don't want them giving up on you. Know that change, it's natural, it's going to be uncomfortable. Again, that comes back to accepting what's happening. So just being brave enough to try to implement change. Having the courage to allow others their feelings. So it can be tough, right? Peacemakers want everyone to be peaceful, right? And be happy with, no, Mom, I'm going to go to the spa today. And I have a caregiver coming in to be with you. And Mom gets mad. Well, be brave enough to just let her be angry with you. People usually do get over it. And go have your spa day and try not to feel guilty. I know this is hard for you, Mom. We're trying something new. It's really hard for me. I would just love your support. Can you just please be supportive? That type of conversation. Caregiver Bill of Rights. I hope I included it in here. Oh, I did not. Okay. You can go on, or Jerry, I'll email this to you. It's, and it is in my book, I believe. But anyway, I'll email it to you. It's great. You can probably even get it online. Just Google Caregiver Bill of Rights. It's author unknown. And it's some really good, it's a good thing to keep handy. And if you are feeling guilty, pull it out and read it. So implementing lasting change, more self-care, meditation and prayer, okay, quiet times, deep breathing. Fastest, cheapest way to calm your system.
Everybody do it right now.
Yeah, you really
Deeper.
Inhale, peace, and then just exhale any stress, any worry. Just sit with that, even for 5 or 10 minutes, whatever minutes you have. Go to the restroom and do that. Find your time to deep breathe. music therapy, massage therapy, all of these things. You have it in your PowerPoint. Don't give up your exercise program. It can save your life, you know, even if you have to go super early in the morning. Make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're eating healthy and drinking plenty of water. So all these things, keeping a journal, trying to keep your sense of humor. We don't have time in this workshop, but when I say let's give it a try, when in a longer workshop, we really do give it a try. I guide people through a meditation. So here are some good resources for you in the back there. Some websites and, like I said, resources. They're also in the answers guide. And then, of course, you have the Council on Aging. So if you have to leave, that's fine, but does anyone have questions? Or you can catch me after if it's private.